Let me describe someone you might know. So this person wakes up at 5:30 a.m. They hit the gym, they answer emails before their family gets up, they run a team, they manage a portfolio, they close deals, and all of this is probably done before lunch. By every external measure, they have made it. And by 9 p.m, they're on their third drink, telling themselves that they've earned that. By midnight, they're 4 in, the bottle's almost empty, and somewhere in the silence of a house that looks like success, they are completely and utterly alone with how they actually feel. This person might be you. And if it is, I need you to keep watching, because what I'm about to share could genuinely change your life. My name is Matthew Stainer. I'm an addictions counsellor and I'm an integrative psychotherapist. Throughout my career, I've worked with exclusively high-achieving professionals, executives, founders, partners, high net worth individuals, and people that you would consider that the world looks at as a success story. People whose relationship with alcohol or substances or self-destructive behaviour is destroying them from the inside out. This channel, Sober Life CEO, is not a wellness channel. It's not about green smoothies or cold plunges or morning routines. It's about the thing that no one in your industry is talking about, which is the silent epidemic that runs through boardrooms, corner offices, and first-class lounges. It's about what happens when the coping mechanism that got you here starts to become the thing that destroys everything that you've built. And it's about what recovery actually looks like for people like you. Not rock bottom necessarily, not rehab rumors, not AA in a church hall, but real, private, sustainable recovery while you keep running your life. There's a phrase I hear all the time in my practice. Matt, I'm a functional drinker. And I want to address this head on because I think it's one of the most dangerous pieces of self-deception in the High Achievers Toolkit. Here's what functional actually means in most cases. So you show up, you perform, you don't let it visibly impact your work. And because your external performance hasn't collapsed, because the revenue's still there, the deals are still getting done, the LinkedIn profile still looks reasonably polished, you convince yourself the problem isn't real. But let me momentarily challenge that. Because what I've sat with across hundreds of hours with executives and professionals in private practice is this: functioning is not the same as thriving. Functioning means managing. It means containing. It means expending enormous invisible energy, making sure no one sees what's actually going on. And that containment, it can and does cost you everything. It costs you your sleep, real restorative sleep, not just passing out, but sleep. It costs you your emotional availability to your partner, your children, and to, most importantly, maybe yourself. It costs you your decision-making at the margins, those moments where clarity and precision really matter the most. It costs you the version of yourself that you actually want to be. You are functioning, but you are not living. And here is the insidious part. High achievers are extraordinarily good at compensating. You built an entire careers on it, making problems disappear, on managing perception, on outperforming expectation. You apply those exact same skills to hiding your drinking, and you know what? You're brilliant at it, which is exactly why you've been able to keep going for this long, and exactly why the problem has been growing in the dark, unseen, while you focus on the metrics that are still green. High functioning doesn't mean low risk. It means high concealment. I want to talk about why this happens, because it's not weakness. It's not lack of discipline. It's not a character flaw. It's actually, in a strange way, a product of the same traits that made you successful in the first place. High achievers operate under immense sustained pressure. They make consequential decisions constantly. They manage other people's fear and uncertainty while suppressing their own. They perform confidence even when they feel none. That is exhausting. It felt exhausting to say that. Deeply, profoundly exhausting. And the brain, under that kind of chronic stress and hypervigilance, will always seek relief. Alcohol is the most socially endorsed, professionally normalized, culturally celebrated relief mechanism that's available to us. Business is done over drinks. Deals close at the bar. Stress is unwound with a bottle. Holidays are measured in cocktails. Success is toasted. In your world, in our world, drinking isn't just accepted, it's practically required. So when the pressure becomes unbearable and the relief you've been using stops working properly, you don't reach for more because you're weak, you reach for more because it used to work. And because no one gave you another option. But I also want to talk about something that I deal with regularly in the therapy room, which is shame, because this is where high achievers differ from other demographics significantly. For most people in addiction, shame is part of the story, but for high achievers, shame is amplified, sometimes beyond bearing. Because the story you've been told, the story you've told yourself, is that people like you don't have problems like this. You've got the degree, the title, the income, the family, and you are supposed to have it all together. But admitting that you don't, admitting that something has control over you, that you aren't managing it the way you manage everything else, feels like a catastrophic failure of identity. So you hide it harder, you manage it tighter, you tell yourself you'll sort it out after the deal, after Q4, after the holiday, and the shame just grows in the dark, and the drinking grows with it. I've sat with people, brilliant, accomplished, genuinely extraordinary people who have been carrying this in complete isolation for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And not because they didn't want help, because the cost of asking felt greater than the cost of continuing. That calculus is so wrong, and I want to show you exactly why it's wrong. Let me be very, very clear about something. When I say recovery, I'm not talking about what most people picture. I'm not talking about a 28-day stint somewhere in the countryside that your PA has to hide from your board. I'm not talking about sitting in a circle in a church hall, sharing your story with strangers. I'm not talking about a label, not an identity, and certainly not a badge of shame. I'm talking about something far more sophisticated and far more suited to the life you actually live. Recovery in the context of my work is the systematic, private, professionally guided process of understanding why you've been using alcohol as a tool for so long and building the internal capacity to no longer need it. That means working with someone who understands the specific pressures of your world, who isn't going to pathologize you, who isn't going to treat you like a case study. It means engaging with the psychological and neurological patterns that have been driving this, the shame, the perfectionism, the hypervigilance, the people-pleasing, the performance anxiety, and actually working through these things. Not suppressing them with willpower, working through them. Because willpower is and never was a strategy. I cannot stress this enough. Every person I've worked with who tried to manage this through willpower alone, through just deciding to drink less, will tell you the same things. It works, and it may work for a little while, until something happens, until the pressure spikes, until the deal falls through, until the marriage hits a difficult patch, until the body just gets tired, and then they're back where they were. Usually worse than before, and with a new layer of shame on top, because they've failed again. So willpower may treat the symptom, but the work I do treats the system. What does working with me actually look like, you ask, right? Or maybe you don't, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It's private completely. No GP referrals, no paper trail, no systems that your employer, insurer will ever see. It's one-to-one, just you and I, a professional relationship built on complete confidentiality and genuine trust. It's integrative, which means I'm not working from one rigid model. I draw on psychotherapy, trauma work, somatic approaches, neuroscience-informed practice, the full toolkit, and I apply it to you specifically. And it's structured around your life, not the other way around. Because I understand that you have a board meeting on Tuesday and a school run on Thursday and a client dinner on Friday. Your recovery has to live in the real world. And it can. I've worked with people who were running 8-figure businesses throughout our work together. People whose colleagues had no idea. People whose families saw the change and didn't quite know what had shifted, just that something along the line had. Recovery isn't a pause on your life, and it doesn't have to be. For most people I work with, it is the beginning of the version of their life they'd always suspected may have been possible, but never had the bottle to go and find. And I want to talk to you about the decision to wait. Because a lot of people do. Because it's the decision most people make. Not the decision to not get help per se, but the decision to get it later, to kick the can down the road. after this quarter, after the kids start secondary school, after things settle down. And I understand that impulse. I genuinely do. There's always a reason why now isn't quite the right moment for a lot of things in life. But I want to offer you a different frame of that. What does another year actually cost you? Not financially. I know you can run that calculation. I'm asking about something harder to quantify. What does another year of not sleeping properly cost you? What does another year of your kids noticing something they can't name cost you? What does another year of your partner feeling like they're sharing a bed with someone who isn't quite there cost you? What does another year of knowing, really knowing underneath all the rationalizations that this isn't who you want to be? What does that cost you? I've worked in this field for long enough now to know how these stories end when people keep waiting. Sometimes they end in a health crisis, a cardiac event, a liver panel that shocks even the doctor who delivers it. Sometimes they end in a marriage that finally runs out of road. Sometimes they end in a professional catastrophe, one decision made in the wrong state, one meeting handled badly, one moment of poor judgment becomes a defining event. And sometimes, not rarely, more often than you'd think, they end in a way that has no comeback at all. I'm not saying this to frighten you. I'm saying it because the people sitting in my practice almost universally say the same thing. Matt, I wish I'd done this sooner. Not one person's ever told me they started their recovery too early. So why does Sober Life CEO exist? Sober Life CEO exists because there is a profound gap in the support available for people like you. Most addiction services are designed for people in acute crisis. They operate on a model of severity. You have to be bad enough to access these services, broken enough, visible enough to qualify for help. That is not your reality. Your reality is different, subtler, and in many ways harder. Because you're too successful to qualify for help in the traditional senses, and too at risk to go without. I built this platform because I believe that the conversation about alcohol and high achievement needs to happen publicly, visibly, and most importantly, without shame. Because for every person watching this who recognizes themselves in what I've described, there are 100 more who are watching from the shadows, not ready to quite name it yet, but aware still. Something in them knows, and I'm speaking to those people too. You don't have to have a problem to benefit from examining your relationship with alcohol. You don't have to hit a wall to want to build something better. Some of the most powerful work that I do is with people who would never describe themselves as addicted, but who know that alcohol is dimming something in them, who are curious about what their life might look like without it, who want to show up more fully, think more clearly, feel more like themselves, etc. But that curiosity is enough, I'm telling you. That's a completely legitimate reason to begin today, because Sober Life CEO is for those people too. Just before we finish, I want to close with something really personal. I know what it feels like to present a version of yourself to the world that doesn't match what's happening inside you. I know what it feels like to achieve things that should make you happy and to stand in the middle of everything you built and feel inexplicably hollow. I know what it feels like to open a bottle, not because you want to drink, but because you need the volume to go down. The pressure, the noise, the relentless weight of being the person everyone else needs you to be. I found a way through. Not through willpower, not through white knuckling, through actual work. The kind that changes you, the way you understand yourself. And it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. Not because I can now say I don't drink, because I am now finally living a life that feels like mine. And that is what I want for you. If any of this has landed, if something I've said has touched something you've been carrying quietly, I want you to take one action today. One, just one. The link is below. Book a confidential consultation. No pressure, no agenda, just a conversation. Or DM me directly. Everything I receive is treated with complete discretion. You don't have to have all this figured out before you reach out. You just have to be willing to have a conversation. The people I work with didn't arrive with certainty. They arrived with a small, quiet, persistent part of them that knew something needed to change. That is enough. If that's you, I will see you soon.